welcome to this week's episode of Changeable Robots.
Change robots. Go
Yep.
bots.
I'm wearing my Changeable Robot shirt.
Oh, nice. Optimus Prime. Bit of prime time. Yeah, it's going to be a good show today, looking back at some of these old catalogs and
Crusty
drooling
old
over
robots.
these
Might need
toys.
a bit of oil.
Rusty old robots. Full of brown rust. I always love Optimus Prime's tired eyes in this picture. Looks like he's about to fall asleep.
He's like, old man, I had enough of this war.
He's squinting really hard. It's like, is that a Decepticon over there? I can't really tell.
Yeah, some of these early artworks and back stuff, you get all characters flying everywhere, as they did in some of the Japanese toys as well. Like, I mean, all the Autobots flying here, and some of the early episodes of cartoon, they fly around and they conveniently stop. And occasionally you'll see characters. It's not clear who's a good guy and who's a bad guy because some of the faction symbols are kind of switched around or different colored characters in it.
No confusion as to what side Optimus is on because he's got his
Yeah.
Autobot tattoo on
He's been in the
on his
nightclub
fist.
and he's getting back in. He's gone out for a break. He wants to get back in again. He's going to that Autobop.
Autobot, yeah, great episode. It's interesting though because obviously this is like, you know, an artist has been tasked with coming up with this. So like Prime is just holding a random little small blaster.
Yeah.
Starscream is holding a blaster, even though he should have his own, you know.
Yeah, it looks more like
arm
an
cannons.
Aerobot gun he's holding or something.
Yeah, but I love this artwork though.
I love the artwork, and I can never remember the name of the various artists because there was several people that did like the different box artworks and then the big like mural background ones. But the beautiful, beautiful art in that like kind of airbrush painterly style. But I feel bad for any of the artists that are like, look at this boxy, mostly non-articulated toy and make it do an actiony pose in your amazing mural. It's amazing that they pulled it off. There's always cheats. There's bits where like you might see Devastator who has like zero articulation, but they've got to make his hand and his leg kind of do something, you know, in the painting and that.
Well, we could have only have dreamt of being able to get some of these into the poses we're seeing here.
Yeah.
Though, funnily enough, the you know, Takara have kind of come back around now, and they're giving us these missing link transformers that, you know, they look like the old toys, but they can actually do the articulation that we showcased on the box art.
Cost a fortune.
They cost a fortune, yeah. You will pay
like,
masterpiece prices.
At least twice the price of what the vintage toy would have cost back in the day.
Yeah, I think the closest I will get to the missing link is probably going to end up buying, like, I might get that Legacy Optimus Prime, the cheaper one, the all plastic one. But yeah, otherwise I'll only be drooling on the pictures of the missing link ones because they're just a little bit out of my price range at the moment.
Prime G1 bootleg about a week ago, like the China bootleg's been around for about 20 plus years now. But it's reasonable quality. I'm quite happy with it. It displays nicely. We'll just touch on. We're going to get into the early catalog stuff. So, but before we get to that, the first kind of pre-advertising, and I did years ago. I actually wrote an article about this. That's why I've got these images still saved. I looked up the timeline of like when things happened, and it was like the toy line. I think the toy line launched about towards the end of the year. And the cartoon and such, but we had Marvel Age was like a hype magazine from Marvel Comics, just basically like a news magazine telling you about different properties and comics and stuff coming out. So this is one of the earliest mentions of the Transformers in America, was this Marvel Age, that it was going to be a comic book and from Marvel, and it was obviously to tie in with the upcoming animated show, which didn't exist yet. I mean, obviously it's in pre-production and all that, but it's not on network air yet. So this is like pre-advertising, pre-selling you these ideas and things. And then we also got, I mean, that's the cover from the first issue, but skipping over to this ad here on the left, we had this print ad saying, retailers, this comic will be advertised via animated commercials on nationwide television, which is a real head scratcher. It's like, what are they on about? Because this has been covered to death, but in the modern era. But we didn't know back then, of course, that both G.I. Joe and Transformers, obviously big popular toy lines we know and love now, but they had very strict laws. This is still that Reaganomics era around what could be advertised on children's TV, commercial breaks, advertising, Saturday morning, yada, yada. And to get around the laws of what they could and couldn't do, they made a brief animated commercial for a Marvel comic book and didn't mention anything about toys, but it's pretty much implied when you see it. You're like, what are these things? It's a stealth way of advertising both the cartoon and the toy line via a TV ad for a comic book, which is a really weird thing. Normally you would never see a ad for a comic book on TV other than G.I. Joe, because they did the exact same thing several years earlier. And that's how they launched the campaign with Hasbro and Marvel. They went, oh, we can do it with G.I. Joe to get around this crazy law.
They're really giving the distributors the Iggy there to make sure you order plenty of these. It says there at the bottom,
accordingly.
Please adjust your order accordingly, because they might as well
be
just
on
say,
TV.
Look, it's going to be
it's
on
not going
TV.
to be like your other crummy
wants
comics that aren't selling.
Yeah, all the kids are going to want the Transformers comics, so you better order in plenty of stock. Scaring them. Yeah, please adjust your orders accordingly. You don't want to be behind this massive hype train.
And it was, it also tells us it was a 4-issue limited series, which it was, but then it ran on for something like 80 plus whatever issues. I've got most on there on bloody trades and filling up space in this room around the place. But I love seeing some of these early print advertisements too, some of the European ones, and that they would have different layouts. Some of them are in like retailer catalogs, like those Kenner Aliens ones, and other ones are in like comics and magazines and all that.
We see the famous headless Ratchet there.
Yeah,
Headless Ratchet and Ironhide, except they do have heads in their chest.
And I never much cared for the artwork on that Transformers #1, because like the Prime's got the weird black face and it's got the pointy ears, real weird perspective. He's like Godzilla size. It's, I don't know, it's Mr. Sulu or someone in the background there, or someone's random dad. I don't know who that is. And I never knew till many years later it was famous artist Bill Sienkiewicz did that up. And then I'm like, oh, now I know why it's so stylized and weird looking. I mean, he does amazing art as well as this weird looking stuff, but this is definitely in his weird art face, like, where he's doing like really hyper stylized things.
It's a really it's one of those things.
Look at the round. He's got round 70s super robot legs and like underwear. Look at it.
And like its gears, I believe, is like he looks like he's been drawn mid transformation while he's shooting up at Laserbeak. It's such an odd cover.
Yeah, what gears is flying?
Yeah, it's weird.
So strange. And it's like, if you didn't know anything about it and just saw that, you think, oh, they must be giant size like the 70s robots, but they're not. I mean, they are giant size, but they're like 2-story house size, not, Godzilla King Kong sized.
Yeah, they're not going to like just step over the highway and as tall as a skyscraper.
Poor Al Bundy was on his way to work there, and Optimus might have crushed his bloody car.
Still a cool cover, no doubt. I'm guessing that's I'm going to take a stab.
Maybe did like Star Trek. Maybe did like Star Trek, and we got like, could be silly, and then we've got Spock ears on front.
I think in this little brochure beside it, I think that's Dutch. I could be wrong. If Chris Mewa happens to be watching this episode, you can tell us, is that German or is that Dutch? I'm not sure. My universal translator isn't working.
Scans of some of the European catalogs, like this, whereas a lot of the American ones, you often the really low res. People seem to care about scanning things better in Europe than America. Or maybe they looked after them better. Whereas this one on the right, you can tell that's like a newsprinty magazine, just by the type of look of it.
You can see the the paper fade and the paper kind of grain coming
Yeah,
through on the scan. Very nice, though, I have to say. This reminds me a little bit of our Turtles catalogs that we were looking at recently, where we probably had the toy designs more or less nailed down, but instead of seeing photos, we're actually getting these kind of, drawings of them. But they're
yeah,
quite accurate to what the final product will actually look like.
yeah. Because I had like I don't know the timeline all of it, but a guy named Maz has done that TF1 blog for years and years. Very excellent blog, and he's done heaps of research, over a decade worth of blogs, where he traces all the kind of European timeline of all the different variants and boxes. That some of the very earliest Transformers in Europe were actually that they couldn't manufacture them fast enough as far as your production cycle over 6 or 12 months. So some of the very earliest ones in Europe and were actual Diaclone ones from Japan factories, but put into a Transformers box, and that created all sorts of weird variants that only existed in Europe.
I wonder, was there like an early cohort of fans who were pronouncing it as the Transformers as opposed to the Transformers? Because depending on what
Oh
way you
no.
see the logo, like even on the bottom of that kind of paper brochure, it has capital letters for trans and formers, even though the two words are beside each other. It's interesting, that maybe they actually didn't even know what way the word was going to be said on
Yeah, it's a
air.
funny thing because it was always shown like that back then, but then when they got to later shows and lines, it always became the one word after that. They never went back to that again. And then some of the European ones, they drop the N and it's actually called Transformers in some of the European ones.
Yes,
And that's not a mistake. That's like
yes.
that's like the localization name.
Love this art so much. Beautiful.
Yeah, some of the early like Japanese arts, or I don't know when exactly did the original version, but it's got copyright 2002. But I think that's when this was shown in print or whatever thing they reprinted it in. Because there's lots of like early stuff showing off artwork like this from Japanese sources and various things like TV magazine and stuff like that. And
I was kind of a dopey kid at times, even though I wouldn't have seen this particular Japanese artwork until I
no
was
way,
older. But
not before the not in the West, we wouldn't have seen none of this stuff until the internet, basically.
the the American and Euro box art does have like similar themes, and I used to always or not always, but at the beginning I kind of convinced myself that I was seeing multiple kind of, like, say for example in this picture, it's not, to me it wasn't showing the sequence of Prime transforming from truck to robot. To
Yeah,
me it was just showing like four Optimus Primes. Like that's the
yeah,
my little child brain kind of reason. It's like,
yeah.
oh, there must be loads of these
Well,
guys,
it's funny because it is in that style too of those Japanese Diaclone ads where there are multiples in the toy ads where they're showing them going along the highway and all that, and so it's kind of a style like the way they're showing it. But yeah, I love seeing this early artwork. It's such beautiful artwork, and it's so action and dynamic. It really reminds me of like all the kind of tokusatsu special effect stuff, like Japanese. I was watching King Kongs and Godzilla's earlier, so it reminds me of that kind of stuff, all that kind of style, and Kamen Rider and all those things. It's that kind of energy and feel to it, as well as the
it
'70s robots.
just gets you excited looking at it.
Yeah,
Just
practical
brilliant.
effects and explosions and some more nice early artwork here, like some more Japanese artwork here, like Triptychon, Metroplex in there, and some tape bots. And
This is interesting. I imagine this is just like right before the release of the movie. So you've got your 84, 85 guys, but you've also got Triptychon and Metroplex there, the new guys coming in. So the city,
yeah, like
this,
Japan had that Scramble City special, which obviously we didn't get in the West, but that bridged the gap where in Japan they didn't get the movie, but they had the toy line and they had to explain, well, who the hell are Metroplex and Triptychon to explain the storyline, because they continued kind of like G1, whereas we're in the West we had the movie and then it jumps over to the later years in the future and that.
and it took me just a moment to realize that it was Trax as the guy beside Prime.
Yeah, it's
John
got different
I was like,
colors.
Yeah, but it is tracks, I'm pretty sure.
He's had
That's an
several
awesome.
variants and colors too, and sometimes one of his variants is a bad guy.
A little glimpse of Triptychon and city mode in the background with the jets kind of flying
Yeah, it's
overhead.
cool.
Just a really, really nice bit of artwork here.
I forget the timeline of the tracks variants and stuff like that, and also the Diaclone, but I think technically one of his variants was pretty much the first female Transformer before the movie and all that. But I don't know exactly what year they first, if that was in the manga pages or where it was, or if that was a later on thing they added in. It's the exact same robot, just different colors.
Yeah, it's a red track essentially. It's
Yeah,
that
because the
female
other one,
version.
the other early one in the West was not Ironhide, but Ratchet. Ratchet was going to be a female character from Nurse Ratchet in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Bob Berdiansky's told that several times on podcast stories and conventions and that. But when they were going to the actual toys and cartoon, they went, no, we can't have this girl character in a boys show. Someone changed that. So originally that was going to be the first ever female one.
There's one universal law. That law is that boys hate girls, and you just cannot sell female characters to boys. They'll totally reject them. Let's totally ignore Princess Leia and all those other successful girl characters that we sold the boy. But it was definitely the mindset of the time. It's like no girl stuff.
Well, one of the cool things before we move on here is when we see this early Japanese artwork, the Megatron, you can always tell it's a Japanese artwork because the Megatron face has that real early toy face look on it, where it's like the kind of like doesn't look like the simplified cartoon version. He's got almost like a kind of crown inside his helmet sort of thing. It was quite cool.
Very
quite
cool.
Distinctive.
Some
later box battle artwork, Devastator, Dinobots all flying around. You got a red tracks there, Grimlock.
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier when I said I used to.
Here it does look like there's multiple ones of them, yeah.
Look at all those Dinobots. There's tons of them.
Yeah, be awesome, just the army of Dinobots.
Yeah, a herd of Dinobots. They do move in herds.
Yeah, it was funny because it's such an old piece of artwork, and then in the movie, though, the Dinobots do end up briefly fighting Devastator.
Yes, they do. Yeah, so we've got the red track appears in this bit of artwork, which is pretty cool. Also looks like the Earth is in an absolute shambles.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Look at all those explosions that we can see happening from space. The Decepticons must have really went hard on planet Earth during this battle scene.
I reckon this is one of the best ones. If you had like a big high resolution version, Blanco posted this one of the best looking ones to have on the wall.
Yeah, I actually have it was well, I have a few different examples of this artwork, but they're all on kind of reissue Devastator boxes. But my most recent one was that Tonkanator one, the Tonka
the
crossover.
Yellow one.
The yellow one, yeah, but it has this exact artwork on the back of the box. I'm almost tempted, because I don't really care because it's a reissue box anyway. I might cut it off and just put it on the wall because it just looks nice and crisp.
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, great.
Yeah, coming up more catalog stuff. As we get into that, I'm going to play a little clip here, which is like some of the early advertisements, and it includes one of the very early ones where the ad we're talking about before, where it's advertising like the comic and that before it gets the toys. So I'll play that clip, goes for a couple of minutes, and I forgot to upload and test it on YouTube, so it came from YouTube, so hopefully it should be fine. If there's any issues, I'll end up, if there's a gap in the show later, that'll be why, if I have to edit it out after the fact. So hopefully not. Let's watch some ads.
It is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. It is the world of the Transformers.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Transformers. Robots in disguise. The Transformers. More than meets the eye.
The Transformers. heroes from Marvel Comics.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, more than meets the eye. The Transformers, robots in disguise.
Attack the Autobot commander! Call in the Decepticon leader!
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Transformers from Hasbro.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, more than meets the eye. The Transformers, robots in disguise.
We're under attack! It's the Decepticons! Get more Autobots!
The Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Transformers from Hasbro.
We are conquerors.
No one is like us.
Only we have the right to be called by the name.
Only we have the right to wear this symbol.
Or this symbol.
Only we are Autobots and Decepticons.
Good versus evil.
And only we have the right to be called the Transformers.
To meet the eye. The Transformers, robots in disguise.
Only the Transformers are real Transformers, each sold separately from Hasbro.
ダイヤクラム。
あのバトルコンボイに続きパワードコンボイ登場。キャリアカーとしてカーロボット対全身騎士としてさらに合体してパワーロボットに宝のカーロボットパワードコンボイ。
So some Transformers and some car robotos there. My favorite Diaclone one tacked on there to kind of show the comparison of where the toy line came from, but also in the old American ads, we get the kids always going role playing with the toys, whereas the Japanese ad, everything's like stop motion and animated and like almost professional, like you're watching a 70s Godzilla film and miniatures and special effects and all that.
Yes, I was just before you played the ads, I was kind of rummaging through. I have this little metal box here that I keep old toy instruction manuals and catalogs in. I was looking for this particular fold out we're looking at now because I do have it, but I just couldn't find it in that box. I did find though a later fold out.
Oh, the silver one.
This
So
is
got
from
the
when we're getting.
micros.
It's got the micros and the pretenders are on the other side.
Yeah,
so it's a bit later on in the line, but
And it has
I
that
really
kind of
have to-
silvery reflective paper. I remember that one.
yes, I have to say I missed that in toys, getting a little fold out catalogue.
Yeah, I used to have the same catalog for years and years as a kid. It was one of the ones we'll see later. It's one of the bigger expanded ones. It has when we're up to like Predacon and Skylynx and pretty much the later years. And it was double sided. You'd fold it out and it was double sided like Autobots and Cons. I had that for years and I used to look at it all the time. And at some point when I've moved so many times, I've lost it. And I love that catalog. I used to look at it so much.
Actually, you can see behind my head where the Decepticon seeker jets are on my
Yeah,
wall.
they're
The
dropping
picture
bombs
that
everywhere.
they're actually the picture that they're framed around is actually the 85 catalog fold out. It's the Decepticon page. You can just barely make it out in the resolution here, but that's the reason why I don't have that particular catalog to hand, is because it's actually framed on the wall. So, but yeah, this looks great. Enter the world of the Transformers.
I will. Might get blown up by all the explosions on that Earth we saw.
I have to say, I know it's probably maybe an unfair statement to make, but the animation is really, really good on those advertisements. It's obviously because they only had to animate like 30 seconds of.
It's got
of footage.
Megatron's
It's
the
not like they
famous
had-
grey bucket head
Yes.
before they finalised the design on the show.
and the way he holds his cannon instead of
Yeah.
doing the arm
Yeah.
thing. That's really interesting. Very interesting. I just love this artwork though. I love how they've really taken creative license with trying to get these
I didn't know
guys
Skywalker
into
had knees, did you?
movements. Yeah, brilliant. He has knees. He's got articulated hands by the looks of
Yeah.
things. Can't wait to get my hands on that toy.
They're going to jazz hands and dance and everything.
They're definitely not bricks with movable arms for sure.
Well, it's one of the funny things. Like if you'd never had any of these toys as a kid, or you only looked at Transformers stuff years later, looking back, you're like, oh, these are pretty crappy action figures. I'm like, well, it's kind of the wrong way to look at it. It's like they never were action figures; they were vehicles that disguised their bonus mode as it's a robot. So you're getting like two toys in one sort of thing. And all the early ones did actually blend in with other toys and die-cast cars and things. You had die-cast metal and like sideswipe certain ones. The little guys where you can look at the it's easy to look at the robot cars or car robots like Sideswipe Mirage, and then look at the mini bots and go, well, they're completely different scales and sizes and shapes. Yeah, because they're not so much meant to go with each other. They're meant to go with like other toys. Like the mini cars are like penny racers in Japan. It was like a 70s style of toy. And they do look like particularly Bumblebee looks like a penny racer and would easily be disguised with actual other penny racer toys in your toy box. So that's really the kind of idea and thing of it.
Yeah, and it's yeah, like you're saying, they weren't supposed to be action figures as
No,
such. They were
they
more
came
like
like years later on.
it was a vehicle, and especially if we're going back to the Diaclone days, it was essentially like, yeah, it was your vehicle with a pilot and a mech.
Yeah, and mecha.
You know, it could change into a mech. And another way of looking at them is they're kind of like puzzle toys in a way.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
are. They go back to those Japanese puzzle boxes as well. That's part of the design of these sort of things.
yeah, so because there was that, you know, for us kids who didn't just go straight to the instruction manual, you know, you felt kind of good working out how to actually transform it from a vehicle to robot and back again to kind of do it by yourself without having to rely on the instructions. And eventually it just would become like second nature once you got to know the toys individually.
I never had a whole lot as a kid, but I don't know if I ever looked. If I had one new in the box, like Double Cross, I got in the box, but I don't think I ever looked into all the instructions until after I'd probably had it for quite a while.
I always appreciate the little things, you know, and you almost kind of you may not notice it these days, or you just take it for granted. But even something as simple as we have a nice red background for the Autobot characters, we got the purple one for the Decepticons, and this is good, this is evil, these are your heroes, these are your bad guys, and you know, we're just going to easily distinguish that for you. Just moving one of my cats here before she knocks over a lampshade.
It's all right.
Hey, Polly, say hello. Hi.
Oh, say look. I'm just
away she
gonna
goes
do a
again.
little distraction here. Apologies if this goes blurry. I'm just going to share like a page I brought up on eBay for a second here. So that's a Japanese, I can't pronounce it probably, Yosagi, whatever box. So you got little compartments. You have to slide a lid or a side panel to move another panel. And once you move that, it lets you move another panel, another piece. When I was a kid, my granddad had a box like this. He went over as a male nurse during the Korean War. And when he came back, he while he was there, he picked up a Japanese puzzle box like this that he had. And as a kid, the one he had was pretty much 90% the same as this. But I've played with it many, many times. And you'd slide a little piece, and it looks like, at first it just looks like a box, and it's like a box. You might, I don't know, you might put some jewelry or something in it, but you can't open it. You turn around, it's completely sealed like a compartment or a safe or something. So it's a puzzle to move one little piece, and that one little piece lets you move another piece. So that's very much part of the design scheme in the original Transformers. If you got to move things in the right order to get something happening of them.
And like you were mentioning earlier, in their original kind of Diaclone and changed robot guises and all the other various brands, they were designed to blend in with other toys.
Like
pre-existing
Soundwave
toys.
was like we know Soundwave from the cartoon obviously is a bad guy and got all those little cassette dudes. But what's not obvious when you watch the cartoon is because they're all gigantic in that. In the micro change line Soundwave is 1-to-1 scale with an actual device from back in that era. And they're not meant to be big audio cassettes like you're playing your boombox. Those are actually micro cassettes. And Sony used to make a lot of stuff like that and had quite a lot of product. I remember my dad for a while had a dictaphone in the 90s. It was a Sony one with micro cassettes, and now they're the same size as those Autobots. Some of them you can actually put in a real player. They won't play, of course, but some of them, if you want to squish them in there, they will actually fit. And some, but there'll be differences in sizes. But that's what they're based on. Same was Perceptor. He was a micro change microscope, but he was the size of an actual, like a child's microscope, of course, not so much for adults.
Was it? Yeah, it even has here. Yeah, it says Cassette Man on this actual catalog folder.
Yeah, that was his like cool. old name and that, and
so we're still seeing some of that old branding carrying over, even though we're in the Transformers era now, but we're still seeing some of the older toy brand names coming over. Leader Truck, it has over Optimus Prime.
Good old Leader Truck.
Good old Leader Truck. Good old Leader Convoy. Yeah, nice glossy glass surface they have them displayed on here as well. Beautiful.
Yeah, that does look nice photograph.
It is these type of glamour shots, though, they burn into your mind, and you stare at these long enough as a kid. It's what plants the seeds, I think, for us to become adult collectors later on. It's just like,
yeah, for sure.
I need them all. I must collect them all.
Well, some of them never saw as a kid. I only saw them in the catalog because there was only a few in a store at a time. And, you know, I was quite young when they came out, and then the next year comes along, the next year, so stuff goes away. You just see the later waves. So unless you see it at a friend's house after school or someone else has got stuff, you know, just you see them in these catalogs.
I used to be a little bit confused. You know, I'd look back, you know, as I started to get older, and you look back on your childhood, and I'd be like, I don't understand how I was still seeing so many of these 84 and 85 characters in the shops when I was growing up, because, you know, I wasn't born till 86, and these were long out of, as far as I could understand, or they should have been long out of production. I didn't realize until later on, when I was kind of reading up on the history of the line, apparently in 1990, they pretty much did a whole re-release of the 84 and 85 guys over here in Europe, which is why I was always
Europe was very spoiled. They got lots of like early reissues over there.
Because I do have you know, memories of going into the toy shops and literally seeing all the Autobot cars pretty much in their.
And the first few years they did reissue year to year, just like Turtles and He-Man. The very early stuff, they would put the first and second waves out in the third year and things like that. So some of them sometimes might even be sitting on a store shelf for like 5 years back then, as well as the reissue ones coming out.
Yeah, and it's another thing you don't really see. Like these days, if it you might be lucky if you get a one and done line, and maybe if there's a couple of popular figures from that line, they might do redos of them, but otherwise it's confined to, you know, bargain bins and discount stores before it just disappears.
And most of the early kind of reissue ones, when I say reissue, I mean it's the same mold, same factory. They're just putting more of the toy out. It's not a different toy. It's the same packaging mostly, except for you do get packaging variants around Europe, like your Mattel gold boxes and stuff. That's pretty weird. See, Hasbro toys in a Mattel branded box because it was just a sub licensee in certain regions. But you did have little running changes to things like probably Optimus Prime is one of the most famous ones. I don't know all the changes, but you've got all sorts of little minor variations year to year over several years, where eventually his head looks quite different, and sometimes his colors on him are a bit different, the tint of red or the blue. You got one of those other European ones where he's got like red feet and that, and there's all kinds of like ones that can kind of, for a real expert, they can pick what year they're from, because the product stamp just tells you when they first did it. Doesn't tell you all the year-to-year variations, which there's quite a few of.
I believe it's the French version that has his red slippers on.
Mm. I do like that one. It's quite cool. Like,
It is cool.
the red slippers. So we've got another catalog here with the proof of authenticity, which we saw on that ad there, the little old rub signs. This one's kind of worn out, but you can see that black spot used to be a rub sign on there.
Yeah, they were really
there we go.
hammering
On
it
the
home.
double crosses wing, he's got one there that still actually works. It's actually hot now. Can you just see the green of that?
Yes, I
haven't touched it. That's
that.
how hot it is because it's Perth. And then on his other wing, he's got another sticker just showing the faction symbol there.
Nice.
But part of the reason they brought, in the first year of Transformers, they didn't have those rub signs. That was something they brought out later on because, well, I mean, this is the law. I don't know if it's official or not, but this is the story I've heard on podcasts from people that worked online and such. They reckon that there was just so many bloody toys and robots and stuff back out then. They wanted to distinguish. No, these are the only Transformers. They're not GoBots. They're not bloody Machinders. They're not like Beyblades. They're not some other robot. Because there were so many robot toy lines. Some of them were older 70s toys from Japan, even in mid 80s in America, under various multiple different brands. Some of the original Diaclone toys were also still in America when the Transformers came out, sitting on toy shelves unsold and not really that well known. So if you go in and see Transformers and you're seeing the exact same toy in a different box, you're going, what the hell's going on? Which one's real? Which one's the bootleg? Most of none of them were bootlegs. They were just all different brands of stuff and by different licensees and all that. But they wanted to distinguish it as the full brand on the toy line, the comics, the show. So you knew it was this one unified thing going forward because it was very confusing before that. And there's a lot of other just cool Japanese toy robots right through the 70s and 80s, some that came to America under like a Mega Supreme's got so many color variants and that in Europe and America. And
the little Timmy would be disappointed with Granny because for birthday she bought him a robot that does change into something else, but it's not an official Transformer. It does not have the official heat rub sign. Yeah, it's if it's not an official Transformer, it's no good.
When I was 4 or 5, I actually had a GoBot that was blue and it turned into a submarine. It was quite a nice toy, but I had no idea what the hell a GoBot was. And for years, I thought it was some kind of bootleg. Because I'm just like, this isn't a Transformer. I could tell by its head it wasn't a Transformer because it had a round silver head. It didn't have a boxy looking shape and all its body was kind of spherical. I wish I still had it because it was a really nice toy, but I was convinced it was a bootleg and I'd kind of play with it almost in spite. It's like, this isn't a real Transformer. Where's my Swoop? Swoop's a real Transformer until he breaks. But the GoBot never broke.
Yeah, it's a similar kind of strategy that it's when we spoke about the Jurassic Park toys a few months ago, where they put that official the JP logo on it. Is like, this is official Jurassic Park, not just some random dinosaur toy. It's our toy,
Yeah.
Don't just buy any
and all the battle
dinosaurs.
damage nonsense. Even that lives on now. I've got this Ghidorah, which is under the Playmates brand, but look, he's got more of this battle damage crap. That they're still doing that stuff now.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing when it came to their branding strategy. Definitely, it worked.
But I did like the rub signs as a kid, and did you the first ones you had, or no matter which one that had a rub sign? Would you rub them, or would you just go like that? Because both methods work.
My thing was just pushing my thumb down on it pretty much as hard as I can, and then just trapping the heat from my thumb, lifting my thumb off, and then it would usually, I'd see the symbol for like a few seconds before it would begin to fade.
Because if you do keep rubbing them, eventually the corner of the stickers start coming off.
Yes.
Whereas if you just like blow it off your breath, it'll well, I guess that could also, the moisture could eventually muck it up. But I mean, this one I've had since 88, 89, whenever it came out. He's still okay. And that's glowing because the heat. I haven't done nothing. But I've been going, when as a kid, I'd go like that. And it should show up a little bit better now because I've just done that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it just they're heat sensitive. So it's a pretty cool little fun bit of technology thing, really, putting that on there. And you wouldn't really call it a play feature, but I mean, how many times did I do that and go, oh, I just like seeing the little glowy thing? So it was a marketing thing, but it was quite clever, really. As well as they put extra faction stickers like that. It's my Streetwise. So that's gone all worn out, but you can still see his other faction sticker on his roof there. So you've got two identifying things telling us it's the Autobot and it's a Transformer.
And whatever the type of material they use for those old rub signs, when they started doing especially
They
the
lasted a
American
really long
reissues,
time.
the American reissues though never had the same good quality. Their rub symbols
No.
never worked as well.
Yeah.
They cut some corners there when it comes to the old rub symbols, I believe.
Well, look at how worn the I guess there's a bit more like the I'm terrible with names of things like when you do model kits, you're not you got stickers, you got vinyl, you got transfers or decals or whatever, or water transfers.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're like that because look how tight they are. Like that's worn out from years of play. Underneath, it still looks good, but see the sticker on the side used to have a police symbol star.
Yeah.
It's so worn out you can't even see much of it because it's been played with so much and been in my hand like this as a kid. But then the stickers, similar sticker wear on him, but you're not really gripping his legs. So those silver stickers are still on his legs. They're still doing okay. I've never had a sticker completely just fall off. They've all stayed on. They're just kind of worn away a bit, piece at a time.
Yeah, with some of mine, they're actually kind of almost starting to disintegrate now. The stickers, like they're not falling off, but it's like they're just they're disintegrating and materializing, dematerializing.
I got a reissue Skylinks a few years ago, and it's the Japanese reissue. It's got the writing on the box, and there's nothing pretty much in English on it. But the stickers on that were terrible. I put them on within a week; they were all peeling off because it was the toy was fine, but it was the quality of whatever they'd printed them on was just no good. But that was a modern reissue. That was like a post year 2000 thing.
Yeah, it kind of shocks you sometimes because
I was
get
so
these
sad.
official-
Like I love that toy. The stickers are all peeling off.
But that's the thing, like you're buying an official reissue, so you think, oh,
Yeah.
nice one, it will be good quality. But then it turns out that if you'd bought like a KO one, they would have good quality stickers and good quality cardboard boxes. It's so odd. It's so odd.
Well, I got that knockoff Prime a week ago, so I haven't taken the stickers out yet. But I'm gonna have a look at them next time, and I'll see how they go. I might test one of them and see how it goes if it actually stays on. But yeah, so here we get a catalog where we're getting kind of more of the full lineup. We've got mini bots, we've got Autobot cars, we've got a Commander Prime, we've got Decepticon Leader, Decepticon or Destron, if you're going with the Japanese ones. We've got old Soundwave, who was like one of my all-time favorites. I had a junker version of him a couple of times. Only about 5 years ago, I got a nice KARL, I think it's like book issue or whatever the hell it is, in those Velcro boxes. And he was perfect. He had tapes, perfect condition, stickers, everything. We get our bloody Seekers, who are just called planes here, but we know them as Seekers now, so we'll call them that. And the cassettes. I always loved the little cassette bots. They were so clever. And they did more designs in the micro change than they ever released in the Transformers. Like there was other ones that never came out here. One was like a little motorbike.
Some of those, the micro change ones look pretty cool.
I don't know why I didn't release them. They're just so simple and small and cheap to make those cassettes. They could have made so many more.
Yeah, I'm surprised, at least, especially late into the line when they were maybe running a bit short on ideas, why they didn't dip further into that micro change catalog and pull a few more designs out.
I only know reading the internet articles in recent years, like most of the stuff, as far as things that weren't released outside of Japan, unless you traveled there or knew someone who sent you something, there's no way you'd know about that stuff until bloody decades later.
Once again, though, we see our nice contrast of the red and the purple backgrounds for our different factions here.
And now Megatron's parts all laid out.
They've almost made it like a checklist now here as well, where you've got you've got
that's some psychology there, really, because it's a box and it's got the number, but it's like a little tick checklist. You're like, man, I got to get that one, and I got to get that one.
Got to get them all. And I will also mention here as well, this bit of artwork of Megatron versus Optimus Prime, that was actually the same artwork that was on the cover of the very first Transformers VHS tape I managed to watch as a kid.
Yeah.
The pilot, it was actually called, they called it Arrival from Cybertron, but they used this exact piece of artwork for the cover, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like seeing when they have early print and advertising art that goes around to different territories and gets used for different things. It's cool seeing all that stuff. Same with Turtles. It's like stuff that gets made for, I don't know, like VHS cover and things like that. I just love seeing all that early artwork. Another big block one here. It's the world
Classic.
transformed, where things are not as they seem. The world of Transformers.
Sleepy Optimus. He's like,
Yeah.
shoot you. You woke me up and now I'm going to shoot you.
But yeah,
Looks so
here too,
tired.
like the Seekers, like is transforming, but in the background it just looks like there's a heck of a lot of jets and a big pink cloud.
And we see as well the Autobot cars flying through space
Just
as they're known to
hooning
do.
around, flying its face. That's so good. I just love that the ones up the top, like Trailbreaker and that, they haven't even transformed. They're just driving in a big gas cloud in space or something. Got lost
driving
on the highway.
Driving along the nebula as you do.
But yeah, I love the background and all the little explosions and sparks and stuff. It's just such a, like, seeing these on the back of the bigger toys in the boxes, and that just looked awesome, seeing these in the toy store, or if you were lucky enough to take one home. So here we've got expanded catalog getting into our following years. We've got Shockwave, also known as Galactic Man, or Radio Shack Man is another nickname, because they used to, pre-Transformers version used to sell there in grey. We've got Triple Change of Blitzwing, who's an amazing toy, very cool engineering. Got the Constructicons, who are another Diaclone era guys who existed before the Transformers, but now they're in green as a team, unlike the early ones where they're all in a whole bunch of weird random colors and look quite strange.
Yes, because we've definitely got some prototypes here in the picture of the Constructicons, because we see that there's a lot of grey plastic that's not used in the final version. Especially on Mixmaster, we can see on the Devastator, he's actually got a grey drum instead of his just plain green one. So I always like seeing little variations like that when we look at these old catalog pictures.
Perceptor's got a red head.
Yes, he does. And I once again though can really appreciate the effort they've put in. They've made a nice little rocky kind of terrain to showcase these.
Yeah, it's cool.
These toys
and I'm guessing that's like a sparkler firework by the look of it.
Yeah,
or something similar. Because they do love their pyrotechnics and those like Japanese toy heads.
Yeah, and this is, like I was mentioning earlier, it's the Decepticon section in particular that I have folded and framed. But behind me, I just love the whole layout of it, and love seeing the triple changers there, who also have some slight color variation that we didn't see in the final release.
Yeah, and he was another one too. Like there's older colors in the early Japanese designs where I think he's in like green and grey in the old version.
Yes, and red even. I think there's
and we get the Deluxe Insecticons, who are all very cool and stylistically very different than the Insecticons we know from the main line in the show, because they've got completely different, more toy kind of colors, the bright yellow and red maroon, because they're all to do with like the Beatrice toy line, like another toy line that was basically all transforming insects. I mean, there were several toy lines that were like that, so they're in that kind of style.
Yeah, the Deluxe Insecticons they're pretty much like the only G1 toys from this era that I have never seen in real life. I've never held one. I've never touched one.
I've had reissues of the original three, like the three purple dudes, and I did have, until a couple years ago, I did have two of those deluxe Insecticons. They were kind of junker versions, but they were about 80%. So they had a kind of missing limb here and there. I had them for a few years from a local collector, but he was just passing them on cheap. So I had them for years and I passed them to someone else on cheap. But that's the only time I've ever seen those ones in person. And they're actually really good engineering on them.
Yeah, they always look fascinating to me. And I always just wondered about them because, you know, obviously they're not in the cartoons. Like, who are these guys?
Yeah, there's a whole other rabbit hole of Beatrice and, well, even if you've ever seen like Pokemon, you got Heracross, and there's a real subculture thing of insects in Japanese pop culture and such. Like they come up on a lot of shows and animes and stuff, like insect characters and monsters and things.
Yeah, very, very cool. All that here. Everything just looks sharp. Love that sound wave, that shock wave.
Yeah, he's got his little
and all this
missile
shiny
thing
glory.
in his gun.
Yeah, love
You
it.
get some cool diorama backgrounds, all these like rocky backgrounds look really cool. Purple sky.
And see, looking like stuff like this, this is what gets my wallet thirsty. Not looking at some boring social media posts of just like, here's this new figure that's coming out from Hasbro soon. It's like, nah, whatever. I love
here's a render of a figure that's going to come out the wrong colors, with the wrong parts.
I just love the effort they put into these old catalogs, and just like it's like they're really just making it seem like a big deal in their presentation.
Yeah, it's like model making skills. They've made real dioramas there and then posed them nicely and then lit them nicely as well and then photographed them nicely.
Yes, and showing, you know, here's the robot forms alongside the vehicle forms. We're letting you know what it looks like in both modes. You know, we're not hiding anything from you. We're
Guess what I don't see in
all
there?
their
I don't see in here like annoying YouTubers or big Pitman's arms or something in front blocking the toys or anything like that.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone on YouTube. I'm talking about the actual toy shows they do each year that used to be private, but now they're all, you know, full of nerds photographing things and things, but you can hardly see what's in the show in a video clip because it's just full of people everywhere in front of all the toys.
I know all about it. Life on the tubesies.
I've never had a Devastator, but I've had 2 or 3 of the Constructicons, but like didn't have the accessories. I did pick up a bootleg one a few years ago, but unfortunately it was one of the worst quality ones that ever did, and none of the parts fit together, and you couldn't combine them at all. It was just like the worst. It was not even worth $10. Like it was just terrible quality. So now we flip over, and they did multiple versions of these catalogs. This is kind of expanding into other ones, but eventually these catalogs, the images would get so small and so crowded because they had so many toys. But this big gatefold fold out's like the style I used to have, but I had the one from later years. We get a good picture of Mega Supreme showing off his modes and his like tank turret with the base on the tracks. Get old Percy with the red head. Dinobots, which the early Dinobot images, some of them have different. Don't know about that picture, but there's quite a number of early Dinobots that have different funny colors and stuff, as well as the actual Diaclone ones. There's like Transformer variants and that with funny colors. More
like
mini-bots, Cosmos in there.
The Autobots kind of got a bit of a snowy background for their setup here.
Yeah.
It looks like chilling in the snow. And just like I was saying with the Deluxe Insecticons earlier, it was the same story for me with these Autobot Deluxe vehicles. I never came across these as a youngster, never saw them, never knew anybody who had one, you know, just didn't have a clue what or who they were.
No, I didn't have any of them. The only 3 Transformers I ever had as a kid, they're sitting on the desk right next to me. But I had these several years apart. That's all I had in the space of maybe 10 years was these 3. And then the next one I had after that was a Blaster, but it was secondhand. His ears were smashed off. His handle was missing. I think my granddad found him at the op shop or something like that because he just turned up with one day. He's like, yeah, have this. Because he knew I like robots. He didn't know what it was. He just picked it up somewhere cheap, I'd say. But yeah, the only guy I have from this era back then is this little fella.
Beachcomber. Looking
Yeah.
good. Still has some
and
good quality tires on him.
And This is my childhood one I've had since whenever. I don't know, since I was 7 or 8 or whenever the hell I got it. Because things always turned up late in New Zealand. And he still rolls good. His wheels still work. And I played with this as a kid for many, many hours, rolling it on the floor. And he's well played with and still going.
Yeah, he's on the quest to find that golden lagoon and
Yeah,
get
the
some
Golden Lagoon,
Electrum.
man.
Yeah.
He'll probably go and just chill out. Might go and hang out with some little native birds like this little kookaburra here, hang out with this Lego Godzilla.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, we'll go and hang out with the animals in the forest. And leave the battles for another day.
Of course,
Got
we've
old
got
Jetfire / Skyfire.
Jetfire. Yes, the Autobot
Most
Air
infamous
Guardian.
character toy.
Yeah, I do remember seeing them in the shops. Never had one, always wanted one. I did finally. I was lucky enough, or I should say, my wife was kind enough to gift me the Siege Jetfire for my last birthday. So at least now I have a decent Jetfire / Skyfire in the collection. But yeah, I would have always loved to have gotten this.
I had one
this
other one I
original.
forgot about until I was looking at the pictures. I had one of the jump starters, the one on the left with the blue head. I can never remember which one's Twin Twist and which one's Topspin. I had him as a kid and I thought he was rubbish. I never liked it because I looked at other Transformers. Oh, these are cool. And look at this guy. And I'm like, all he does, he just bends in half, and that's it.
Yes.
Like that bloody Rocklord guy that's in the He-Man, because I used to have him as well. And he just annoyed me. The gimmick works well, but I didn't know he was another Diaclone era toy as well that got repurposed in the Transformers, which explains why he's in a completely different scale than, I mean, all of them are crazy scales, but he doesn't fit with anything in the whole line.
Yeah.
So he was from a separate, different toy line, and he does have those 70s anime drill tank parts. So it's a very different design aesthetic is probably what irritated me as a kid more than anything. Sounds a wanky thing to say, but it was just clearly of a different era. He's more like a 70s robot than his 80s robots. He is way to look at him. But I never liked him, and eventually I got rid of him, and I just kind of erased him from my memories. And now I've got another one out in the lounge that I didn't even want. It came in a mixed lot, so I'm going to sell it on eBay cheap.
I think it's a clever strategy by Hasbro how they present the stuff in these catalogs, because they keep everything within its own subsection of themes.
Yeah.
Like, so you see the mini bots are all together on their panel, whereas all the car bots are all together on a separate section. And it's a clever way. First of all, it's kind of letting you know that there's kind of a sub theme or sub collection of characters you can buy, but also it's a good way to disguise the fact that a lot of these toys are not in scale with each other, and we're not going to actually show you pictures of like the mini bots alongside the normal cars or along, because otherwise you'll just be like, what the hell?
Together from multiple different toy lines.
Yeah. So we'll separate them out. We'll categorize them. It will work from a psychological standpoint.
Blaster
for
towers
giving you
over
the
Soundwave.
Yes, exactly.
Because he's meant to be like a real size radio, and the other guy's meant to be a micro cassette.
Yeah, like Prime and the car bots, those original like Diaclone guys, they scale nicely with each other, whereas everything else you're kind of
forgot up in the corner there we've got old is it Whirl and Roadbuster, two other non-Transformers, non-Diaclone toys that came from a completely different company again, which is why they've got very different aesthetic to them. And one of the fun things about the Roadbuster, he goes back to another company where that design was used in an anime long before Transformers ever existed, because it's just like a mecha robot.
Interesting. I did not actually know that.
It's called Dorvac, I think. I'll see if I can Google. I think it's like Armored something Dorvac.
Dorvac, interesting.
Special Armored Battalion Dorvac. So yeah, if you want to see the design of him, I mean, it was a toy, of course, and I did have a junker version of that a couple of years ago. I haven't got any more, but it was quite nice. And you can tell when you handle it, it's very different engineering, but it was very solid. I think it had some die cast in there too. But yeah, he's really cool design, and he's almost like, I don't know, Gundam or even Jetfire, where in the anime, he's just like a mecha robot thing, but there's variants of him in different colors and all that. And so there has been other toy versions of him outside of Transformers that are to do with the original license and that. But it's a very cool design.
Definitely. I can't knock too many of the designs here, apart from the jump starters, like we mentioned earlier. But other than that, we got a lot of very cool looking bots in this lineup, I have to say. And as a general rule of thumb for myself anyway, just from my own opinion, I don't think especially when it comes to those Diaclone vehicle designs, they never ever got them as good as the vehicle modes for these original G1 characters.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
no matter
true.
the robot designs, I think they always were able to improve upon, but when it came to the vehicle designs, a lot of them were just perfect, especially for those 84 cars. They were just spot on to what you want. Just good
looking up
quality.
I
They
couldn't
look like
remember the
they
name
could,
of the company that made the what's his name? It's like Takatoku Toys. I can usually remember it.
Takatoku Toys. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who had done a whole bunch of really cool different mecha and robot designs, and the anime was made to sort of promote that. And it's pretty much like another similar Gundam sort of thing, like space war mecha battle thing. But yeah, I love all the old car robots or Autobots and all the cool sporty style. You know, we get like the Firebird, you get like your Datsuns, your Nissan Skyliner, you get the rally looking dude with smoke screen, you get your Porsche with Jazz, and the old I can't think of the racing dude's name. The old cigarette man.
I know what you're saying. Yes, the old Marlboro man.
Mirage. Yeah, he had that Citaians, which was a parody of a mock of the 70s cigarette company that used to be advertising on the sports cars and that. But yeah, I love those early cars. And then you get funny stuff like old Skids, who's like a little like Japanese compact car thing that looks like a Honda, but it is a different, distinct car that was only made in certain models in certain years. And it's kind of an ugly, fugly sort of car. It's like something like, you know, if your mum to take the supermarket on the weekend or something, it's got extra storage on the back, and but it's like compact. It's kind of like Honda City Turbo, but then with an extra caboose space to fit things in, but still fit in the, you know, small spaces like the Japanese style. But I love all these cool cars. And then we get there's so many great repaints. Like we get Sideswipe into Red Alert. And it's like, yeah, you need like a Lamborghini first day car. Like, when am I going to use that? Possibly in Miami Vice. I don't know when we're going to use that in the real world. And then you look at all the Diaclone ones. There's so many cool color variations there as well. Like of all the cool Sideswipe sports car variants and even like Trailbreak and all that. There's heaps of different colored ones of them. So if you really just love die-cast cars or sporty, realistic-looking cars, there's heaps of cool ones to collect there. The prices have all gone through the roof, both on Transformers and Diaclone these days. But 20 years ago, you could pick them up for semi-reasonable prices for vintage ones.
Diaclone prices are absolutely insane.
Like there are people that collect just stuff like that, just like variants of like, you know, the sporty cars and that, who like cars more than they like robots or Transformers.
Yeah, just more things to make your wallet thirsty.
Yeah, and they used to always come in those little styrofoam in the boxes too, which would display in the window really nicely, and the little accessories that would all line up, and so that, you know, they looked awesome.
Yeah, the
blow up
box
of the
presentation.
Sparkler Battle.
Yes, that's totally. It was a sparkler in mid explosion. Someone just caught a nice shot of it.
It shows off the nice chrome on the old slag there, like it's like reflecting the light of him. And
funnily enough, this is one of the few instances of what I mentioned earlier, where they don't tend to mix and match the different.
But they're cheating. They've got guys in front and behind, so you can't really tell what size each thing is.
Yes, yeah, we know
I mean,
from
the Mega
owning them,
Supreme's
but
bigger than all of them, but he looks like he's almost the same size as Shockwave. Eh? I mean, he is
yes,
similar, I guess, because Shockwave's a pretty big toy as well.
that's right. Yeah, now Shockwave's another one of these towering giants. He's
And
very
he had
tall.
the original one, and that had the lights and sound, had the cheesy sound effects. I think it had a light. I've never owned one. I assume it had some kind of light because there's the transparent part in there. So I'm pretty sure it had the
Loves,
LED or something in there.
I love seeing the chrome horns on slag as opposed to
Yeah,
the red
so good.
plastic ones we actually got.
I know
wish they'd
sometimes as
kept the
kids,
chrome
I
design.
didn't have them, but some people would display the horns off sideways because it was shown in some early advertising like that.
Yeah,
But
mine were always pointed forward.
real Triceratopses do not have sideways horns. They're not very
Yeah,
effective like that. But it's a style. Some people display it like that now. He had variants too with like red horns and stuff.
yes, yeah. No, I'd love to have had the chrome horn version though. That looks really cool.
Yeah, I had the bootleg ones of all 5 Dinobots, which were like quite high quality. I gave them away a couple of years ago. And I had a junker version of Slag, but it was actually found in the shed out the back here. So it was never mine. It belonged to someone else. I was tidying up a shed, but it was in really bad shape and it had rust and water. And so I just put it on. I put it on not even eBay. I put it on like a Transformers collectors group one day, just like basically junker for parts, because also anyone wants to restore or try and cobble together another one.
Yeah, my G1 slag's not in great condition. His chrome's pretty worn. I should probably either pick up one that's in decent condition or pick up a good bootleg while they're still easily available.
Yeah, those bootlegs are really nice. They still had like good paint on them. They were kind of missing some of the stickers and that, but the chrome looked really good. Like if you didn't know at first, you could look at it and think, I think it was an original, but there's little obvious tells like Grimlock. You can open his mouth, and I looked up a guide online showing differences. There's actually a groove, almost like a tongue in his mouth, and it's like the indentation of when they do the injection molding, whatever. There's a shape in there because you know how the Dinobots have these little kind of panels and kind of fake circuit-looking panels and stuff all over them. The shape in it is completely different to the original one, so you can easily tell just by opening his mouth and go, "Oh, that shape's completely different shape than the original." And no, it's the bootleg just from that. But otherwise, the quality was really good on them. They posed well, the joints were good, the screws and the way it went together, they transformed fine. So, I had them for 5 or 6 years and had them out for a bit. So I was fortunate to have them, and now I don't have them anymore. So close up some of these guys.
Yeah, nice. Rocky, snowy terrain. They seem to be congregating around here. And yes, as
And
you
another
mentioned
fun
earlier, we
thing
have
in
Redhead Perceptor.
with some of these ones that came over from Diaclone and Microchange, sometimes they would have an extra mode that they didn't bother telling you about when they became Transformers. I've never owned that one, so I don't know if it was in the manual or not. But here's 3 modes, not 2. So technically he's a triple changer, but it's one of those kind of fudgy in-between modes where he's a robot, he's a microscope, and he's got another mode. It's kind of like I guess they call it half microscope, half tank, because he has, if you look underneath, he has tank tread wheels. So he has an actual legitimate third mode.
Yeah, it's almost like a Cybertronian telescope tank or something.
Yeah,
he transforms
which really goes to the kind of the like mecha type designs and stuff of typical Japanese robots and that, and like just having like other indistinct modes that are like not terribly useful, but it's still a legitimate thing. And there's a few toys like that across the line that have little Easter eggs or things you don't know about, like Prime. You could open his cab, and we didn't get Diaclone pilots here, but it's still got little spaces where they would have gone in the original release.
Yeah, because I always used to wonder, as many people did when they started picking up their initial G1s, you would find those little slots for the Diaclone pilots and be like,
yeah,
are there human figures that are supposed to go with these? Are they going to release them? Are they out already? What's going on?
The other
sometimes you
other
find like
Easter egg
another
is Blaster.
micro scaled figure this fit inside.
Yeah, there's not many things in the West that are that small, because the original little pilot dudes are like got like the magnet in the feet, and they're so super tiny. You kind of like drop them in the carpet, or the dog or the vacuum will get them easy. But the other Easter egg is Blaster, and I was like amazed to find out years later, thanks to internet articles and fans documenting the other stuff, that the original version of him had an actual working radio in it. Like it was AM radio, I believe.
Yeah, mind blowing, absolutely.
And then there's a fun Mexican version that's in like blue and gray that has parts of Blaster, Soundwave, and Megatron. It's both a bootleg and an official release. As they mixed up parts and made their own weird variant of Blaster down in South America, but it was under license at the time. So it's both an official and a bootleg, because they changed parts the way it's supposed to.
No doubt if any of them still exist.
It's really cool variant.
Mega Blaster Wave.
Yeah, and I love the other colors of Blaster, and that, like I've got in those modern ones, I've got the got his twin cast colors, and I've got that shattered glass ones and the modern Voyager ones, and then I've got a reissue of, I guess it's twin cast. It's a Takara reissue hanging up above my head precariously from the hand of a Titan who's holding him like this. And it's like, you probably shouldn't have a toy that costs $100 hanging like that where it could fall and shatter, but that's how I live.
Yeah, we work with the space we have, you got to do what you got to do.
It just looks too cool heading up there.
You'll run that risk.
I got several Blasters now. I had one as a kid that had his ears are smashed. So I never knew he had ears until I was an adult and saw one that wasn't smashed, because they stick out, and like those Batman ears on that Transformers Optimus cover earlier, they stick way up like crazy antenna ears. And kids playing with things, they're like, like doing all this, and that they get smashed all the time. And his carrying handle, that would get smashed off all the time because of where it would end up in the toy box or kids playing rough. So I never knew it had that, because I got it secondhand, missing those parts. And his tape deck used to jam up, because eventually that spring mechanism would wear it and it would get stuck, and your tape would get stuck inside. It was bloody annoying. And I picked up one on eBay about 10 years ago that didn't have all the smashed in the mix lot. And I was like, oh, he has ears. Because at the time, there wasn't a lot of HD images around online. There was little blurry stuff where you can't really see his ears, and people's like eBay listings or photos and old websites where we had a lot of HD stuff around. But yeah, I picked that one up. He's really nice. He was a vintage one with his had the bloody gun, which I'd never had the gun before. And then I got, in the last 2 years, that Walmart reissue came out at JB Hi-Fi here, and I picked him up, and it's crap. He's okay, but the plastic was awful. The box was super thin and collapsing on itself before I even opened it. And the quality was so poor compared to the original one. I just couldn't believe it. And the colors of the plastic were way off. The gray looked terrible on it. It was still an okay toy. I don't regret buying it, but man, if you'd never had the original, we wouldn't know the difference. But having owned 2 different versions, actually 3, because I donated one of them to Analog Toys Tony. I donated him a really nice Blaster and a Soundwave. So I've owned a couple of versions and seen the differences. My one was all janky as hell. All the limbs would shake around everywhere and rattle, whereas my other one I got off eBay, he stands perfectly. It doesn't fall over, and his joints are nice and tight. But yeah, he's one of my all-time favorites. I love Blaster.
Yeah, he's cool. He's very cool. Even if he is, once again, another one of these kind of bricks with arms in robot form. Yeah,
it never bothered me, because I guess I like, I know, even as a kid, I never cared about that aspect, and I like chunky, square robots. They just look powerful. They look like sumo wrestlers as robots, kind of, you know? Like Metroplex. And
yeah, Metroplex I can definitely forgive, because he's just so big and chunky.
Yeah, you're not going to unbalance him. You get him in the sumo ring, and he's going to throw you out, throw Triptychon all the way into the ocean.
Oh, big time. Sumo champion, Cybertronian sumo champion.
Yeah. So what do you think of the expanded mini bots? Because now we get Power Glide, Cosmos, who turns into like 50s kind of UFO, Sea Spray, and the old Wham Kablammer.
Yes. Yes, Warpath. Yeah, no, I love the additions of the extra mini bots just to
Very
flesh
colourful
out
too.
those characters. And of course with the mini bots, they're obviously at a lower price point and than your other retail
Yeah,
kind
well,
of
he was the
branches. So
first one I ever got, was this fella, because of that price
yeah,
point that was affordable. So
and that's the great thing though about the line is that you do have these different price point, and you've got, like, I suppose the mini bots, you could consider them like the entry level, the pocket money toys, so to speak. So look,
yeah,
I would have been delighted
and
to have had all these
I guess
guys
the
as a
next
kid.
first price point would be this guy, the Streetwise, but I never had any more of the Protector bots. So I would have loved to have had the other ones to, combine them into the defense. Or that used to obsess me as a kid, seeing the all these combining robots that in later years they really played up, but they're very simple, all of the robot modes, and they're very simple as toys. Still great vehicle modes, but the robots are even simpler than the solo,
Yeah,
early car robots. Once you got the combining ones, the combined mode's awesome. Vehicles, robots, not so much. But I was obsessed with having some kind of combiner. I never had one as a kid. It drove me nuts. Years later, I had some secondhand ones from a friend, and he had I had a couple of Combaticons and a couple of Constructicons, and it was a G2 one and different colors. No hands, no feet, no head, couldn't combine anything. And they just drove me nuts. And at some point, I just got rid of them because I couldn't do anything with them.
yeah. Oh, but then you more than made up for it though in your adulthood when you were buying those modern
Yeah.
versions of the
Oh, for
combiners.
sure. I still wouldn't mind if they did reissues of more G1 stuff. Like, you can still get bootlegs of like Bruticus all day and Constructicons, but the bootlegs are appalling quality. Most of them, the plastic will just snap in your hand. There have been some better quality ones made many years ago, but most of them have gone. They've gone. They're in the hands of collectors who are not going to let go of the good reissue bootleg ones. Most of the other bootlegs, you're talking 10th generation bootleg with shampoo bottle quality plastic that just shatters in your hands if you try and actually combine the damn thing. So I would love if they did proper reissues, even if they're overpriced now, of like the combining robots from back then. I would pick those up, even though I've got some of those Combiner Wars and other ones and stuff here.
Yeah, but even like I have a couple of different Devastators, like G1 Devastators, and even in their original like early releases, as as individual pieces, they're fine. But when you combine them to the one, to the actual Devastator form, it's always been a janky toy. Like
Yeah, it
the
was the
arms are
first
ready to
combiner.
pop off.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's got a bit of a bad back. He tends to lean forward a bit and stuff, like, so
Like us.
it took them a while to kind of perfect
Yeah, they
that
went from the
combiner element.
like the Devastator was in the pre-Transformers line, so he was kind of like an experiment. That, when I say converse combining robot from Dakar, there were other combining robots in the 70s. I mean, there's shitloads of combining robots that are like, Bandai pretty much mastered the formula of combining robot toys in the 70s and early 80s and made amazing stuff. So Dakar experimenting with this stuff. When they came around to doing like Combaticons, Protector bots, aerial bots, they went with the I've forgotten the name now. They'll all have the same combining pattern of a torso and the arms that just plug in the heat, and they're all interchangeable. Scramble City, they're all interchangeable with the hands and the feet and the heads, even the weapons. Mostly you can swap around, and that they didn't just combine into robots. And the Scramble City feature, which I would advertise more on the Japanese and the American ones, you could swap the limbs from any of them around, and that was like a feature of it, which is a really cool feature and a really cool engineering. And when it came to releasing Metroplex and Trypticon, all the combiners were also compatible with them and had little ports and parts that connected and ramps and stuff. Like Onslaught had that big crazy long ramp. Like, what do you do with this? It can connect to Trypticon and Metroplex. But they didn't play that up in the Transformers because they were trying to push the good versus evil rather than just, this is just a whole heap of robots and mecha and play with what you like. So they didn't advertise some of those other features so much in the West, even though you could still do those things. You could still build them together. Metroplex had the ports on him were on his. You can plug the aerial bots onto his legs.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, which is a really odd. Like you can have him like super loaded up with these extra aerial bots, but he just looks like he can't move. Like he already looked like he was having trouble moving, but now it's like my legs are so fat I can definitely.
It's like Yokozuna, and we've just like got little midget wrestlers and just plastered them onto his legs as he walk around.
Yeah, duct taped them onto his legs.
Yeah, I used to read
it's still cool play feature all the same.
Yeah, I read a blog years ago called Burr Icy, which I didn't understand that, but it was a reference to like the first appearance of Jetfire in the cartoon where he gets frozen in the ice. I read that blog, and he documented that guy had pretty much for several years he had like a vintage, pretty much complete European and Japanese and American Transformers collection, like basically everything. And he actually started doing a photo book in collaboration with several other people to do the first ever complete photo book, like high, good modern photography, like good quality images of basically every Transformer, like everything that was vintage, including all the European variants. And I think it had some of the Mexican variants and colors and bootlegs, as well as all the Japanese releases. But then Hasbro famously blocked that book when it was about to be published. It was a fad project that they worked on for several years in their spare time while working normal full-time jobs and all that. And they blocked them right when they were about to put it out, which kind of sucked because there still doesn't exist a complete photo archive that other than what they made in digital form. There's been like the Mark Bellomo book, which is a great book, but it's just the American Transformers. It doesn't cover the Japanese and European stuff, which is a significant amount of things.
Who Hasbro trying to take good things from us, especially when they're not actually putting out anything themselves.
Yeah, no, they don't have a competing product or anything. Mark Bellomo's one was an independent one, but even now, you can't do any independent anything if it's not through them or Dark Horse or someone. They will just, their lawyers will get onto you straight away and they'll send you notices saying cease and desist.
Cease and desist. Cease and desist with your fun.
The funny thing is you could make a digital version on a website and no one gives a shit. But if as soon as you start printed as a book, then it's like, here's the lawyer's letter.
Yeah, some good imagery here. Get a good look at our Carbot.
Who's the coolest out of the Carbots? Like I always thought that Silver Streak and Sideswipe are like very sporty looking. Like if you're going to drive like one of these or tracks, if you're going to drive one of these cars for real, it's like
Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were definitely two standouts for me, just because of the cool red and yellow Lambo.
I don't want to drive a police car, even though the Datsun's a cool, sporty looking car. And I don't want to drive a fire engine. I'll probably crash it. And I don't want to drive the proper actual Mirage race car because I'll just spin out and crash into something.
Jazz would be a pretty cool Porsche 911 to drive.
Until I crash that, and then I'll need Hoist and Trailbreaker to come and tow me away.
Yes, come to the rescue in their squished cabs. But yeah,
I did have a reissue Grapple a few years ago too. I think I moved that on because it was really nice. It was really nice condition. It was one of the Japanese reissues, but I think it was missing some hands, or he's one of those ones like Prime where the hands come out and he has a missile hand, but sometimes those parts are missing.
Yeah.
I do love the crane gimmick though, like it extends. It was a really cool gimmick on that.
I'm missing one of my Inferno's hands, so he just has permanently got his gun hand attached. I just don't know where the other hand is.
And the other guy I have got a G2 Sideswipe. I've still got him. He's sitting there and he's in like black. He looks really cool.
Yeah, I have a G2 Sideswipe too. It's a really, really cool version of Sideswipe. In his
black. And he's got a red head and red hands, I think, and silver feet. He used to actually sit for years with my dad's diecast cars. He wasn't in my room. He just sat in the lounge with the other cars, and like sometimes if one of his mates was overlooking at diecast cars, he would sit on the TV cabinet sort of thing. You know, he had like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff. And sometimes someone would pick it up and go, "Whoa, this is a robot!" And then when they picked it up and started messing around with it,
was in disguise, you might say. A
Yeah.
robot
Oh,
in
it was.
disguise.
People generally didn't know. They had not. They thought it was just a die, because it was a die-cast car. It had rubber wheels and it had a metal body frame, die-cast parts of it.
Transformers, they control their bodies, they can transform their bodies into vehicles, creatures, weapons, and more. Decepticons plan to drain the Earth of all her energized resources. The Autobots strive to defend the planet.
That's funny. It says all her. They're saying that Earth's a lady. I just haven't noticed
Lady
that bit
Earth.
before. Must be
Mother
Gaia from the
Nature.
Captain Planet cartoon.
It's Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
Yeah, just no, they do a great job, and like I mentioned earlier as well, it's like you've got your little checklist here, so you could be, as a kid, you could be there with your pencil or crayon marking them
Yeah,
off
yeah.
as you pick them up,
Yeah, a bit of
dreaming about
chop
owning
shop.
them all eventually.
And I like the way they show off like Jetfire Prime just on the big block with the spacey background, and they show off like his trailer nice, and you got the little roller and the little robot thing that lives in there with the parts. Like they show that off really nicely.
Yeah, just a great presentation of what they're selling here. They just really put a lot of effort into this. Much better, as I mentioned, than just looking at a render of a toy that's not out
Yeah,
yet,
that's
or a
the worst.
prototype just
That's the
sitting on
worst.
a table. I
I'd
just
rather
find
see an
those
illustration
Hasbro.
of a toy. Technically, a render is an illustration, but I'd rather see someone's pencil sketch. Like, here's something we might be making that an ugly render that's just like not even worth showing to the public.
Yeah, look at Shockwave there. Just looks fantastic. I still don't
I think it's one of
own
the
a Jeep with
coolest
Shockwave.
toys, and like as an adult finding out, I'm like, oh man, he wasn't even a real Transformers. Like they just got added into the line, but it is very cool, and he's got a cooler gun mode than Megatron, I think, because he's like this fantasy science fiction gun rather than the Megatron's a realistic gun, but it's very cool. But the Shockwave is just more, you can actually play with it and run around with it. Whereas Megatron, if you try and run around, the bits are just going to fall off everywhere.
And Megatron, he could be a little bit too realistic at times. Wasn't there
Yeah.
I believe there is. I think we might have spoken about this way back in the day, but wasn't there like recorded instances of people using Megatron in gun mode to like knock off shops and stuff? They're pretty much just using him as like a replica gun.
That's happened multiple times. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still most of the toy guns now are like Nerf, or they make them unrealistic and crazy colors. But it still actually are realistic toy guns made now, which boggles my mind because they changed the laws around any kind of firing mechanisms. And a few years back in Queensland, a guy used to import gel blasters, which people used in role play and cosplays, as well as like kind of like a paintball style game and that. And they're not real guns by any stretch of the imagination, but the police raided his physical store because he had like a hobby import store, as well as mostly selling them online, and actually took him to court and shut him down for selling gel blaster, basically a toy gun that fires a little pellet thing, not like the original Megatron would fire little missile pellet things, just via a spring mechanism. But it's crazy. I mean, it makes sense to make things more safe, and it's not so much an issue in a country like Australia. Although it does still happen more in America, where there's a lot more guns and gun culture. People still rob convenience stores with like their finger in the pocket or toy guns and stuff now, and they get shot dead doing it. So there's very good reasons for having those laws and changing things. But don't stop me importing a G1 Megatron. That's nonsense, because they have strong laws in Australia where basically it's actually illegal to import a G1 Megatron here. You can do it, but you risk, if customs grabs it and it's on their list and they see it, they will just destroy it, and they won't tell you they destroy it. They'll just do it.
Well, I bought it's years ago now, like must be 8 or 9 years ago, but when I was buying my D1 Megatron, I messaged the seller. I was just like, look, will you do me a favor? Will you actually transform him into robot mode before
because
you
it goes
send
through an
him? 'Cause
X-ray machine when it gets to
I just don't want anybody, seeing through the X-ray machine this very realistic looking like Walter handgun and then starting to mess around with my package. So yeah,
As
put him in
used in The
robot
Man
mode
from
before
Uncle.
you send him. Exactly.
Not just used, but I believe that some of the designers said that what was actually inspired that particular version was seeing that show.
Yeah, with the little stock and elongated barrel.
Yeah, I've
and
never
the wee scope
owned
as
one
well.
or seen or held one. I would like to have one, but probably about 10, 12 years ago, I was almost going to get one for a reasonable price in a reissue. And then I was looking up the local state laws in Perth. It's a bit fuzzy wuzzy. It's not as strong as the other state. In Victoria, they'll absolutely just confiscate and destroy it if it turns up in customs. In WA, it's not as strong. There's not such a strict law. You can technically do it, but there's still a risk they might destroy it. And I just went, it's about $200, and I'm like, I'm not throwing that money away so the customs could destroy an import toy. I just went, no, it's not worth the risk. If it was a local collector or someone I could drive to and get it, I would happily buy it. And I even used to put ads up for several years, but no one in the state had one that was within the distance or was willing to sell it. And I just was not going to have one come from overseas to get confiscated and destroyed. I thought, what's the point?
No, I think getting them shipped in robot mode if you can is the safest way to
that's
go
the only
if you're buying
sensible
a
way to
loose
do
one.
it. You can buy knockoff MP 36s or whatever, MP Megatron all day because they ship in robot mode as standard. And it's not on the same list as the G1 Megatron for being a particular toy that's, notorious. But it's also the reason Megatron and G2 got turned into a tank. But if you read the G.I. Joe comic, actually Cobra transformed him into the tank when he got battle damaged.
That's right.
That was like the in-canon story of the time. But the other reason is because of all these like toy laws. That's why he became a tank and stopped being a gun. And sometimes people go, oh, that's not my Megatron. It should be a gun and not a tank. My counterpoint is a tank is a giant gun on wheels and a lot more powerful than just a handgun.
And also at this point, he's like, he's been a tank more times than he's been a gun in the various
even in the 90s, like they did the Combat Hero Megatron and Combat Hero Optimus, but the same thing, Combat whatever Megatron, where he was a purple tank with the camo colors. And he had the air squishy firing missile gimmick on it.
Yes. I love the way even in this little blurb they actually tell you the type of firearm he's supposed to be, Walter P38.
Yeah, he is beautiful in that gun. Like if I had one, I would absolutely keep him in that mode there. I wouldn't waste my time with the robot mode because it was better looking. There were several other gun formers from Takara back in the day that weren't into Transformers. Quite a few of them. They all look quite amazing in the gun modes, and the robot modes are kind of fairly janky. But I'll definitely keep it like that, like with the full stock and the scope and everything.
Yeah, I'm tempted, because at the moment I have mine in robot mode just because of space constraints, but I would be tempted to almost get a bracket put on the wall so I could actually just have.
Yeah, I've seen ones like that, like an
mode.
actual gun display, like backer on it. I've seen people display it. It looks really nice. And so the only reason I never got one of the in masterpiece ones or knockoff ones is because the modern one it's just plain grey. Whereas this has nice reflective looking distinctive colors on it. So you take that away and just have them plain grey. It doesn't look like much of anything. It's not as nice looking.
Yeah, very true.
But yeah, the Insecticon had a great look. They had the same kind of chrome like the Dinobots. It's like super shiny.
Yeah, they look really, really nice. Love seeing the trio together as well.
And they had other coloured ones. I think I'm not sure if it was a pre-Transformers one, but they were like in red instead of purple. It looked quite cool.
They were quite cartoon accurate as well, as opposed to
they're one of the few ones that did actually match up.
Yeah, they look business. They really do. Love that chrome.
Yeah, some of the third-party toys occasionally. Well, Hasbro has done more Diaclone homages and modern stuff, but often third-party ones will do Diaclone colored variants of their molds and that.
Always get a chuckle out of looking at Megatron's trigger crotch when he's in.
Yeah, how can you not?
Hold me here,
It's just
kids.
such a weird placement. And there was another guy, I think it was just called like Gun Robo or whatever of the same toy line, who looked much better in robot mode. And it's weird that they didn't choose him to be the evil leader.
Yeah, it must have been the Walter Man from Uncle popularity
Yeah.
just leaned them towards Megatron.
There's another guy actually who turns up in a Sunrise cartoon who was a Takara toy, who was not in Transformers, but who was from that gun line, who's in an anime. But the joke is he's 1-to-1 scale like the toy, but he's in the Brave Yusha show, which is a show full of giant robots. And you've got this little character who is a realistic human-sized gun, and he's miniature. He's the smallest character in the show, and he's just a comedy character.
Interesting. Yeah, liking these triple changers as well. They're looking nice in their pictures.
Yeah, I love the whole concept of triple changes, even though like we get like there's other robots that technically have more modes, but they're kind of bonus modes, whereas a triple changer's got 3 distinct modes. We got here like Astro Train and Blitzwing, which are both really cool toy designs, and both are really cool in the show as well. I love seeing them.
Yeah, cool modes all around, I have to say, with the triple changers. Of course, we get Octane later on as well with his truck and
Yeah, Octane was
plane
cool.
modes.
He was like a tanker.
That's right.
And he became friends with Triptychon. Well, friend / sycophant when he was trying to get the Energon cubes in season 2. Yeah, big time checklist here.
So we've got all our sub-categories. You got your deluxe vehicles, your Autobot scientist, your Dinobot, your Autobot communicator, jump starters, Autobot defense base, which is Omega Supreme. And you've got your Autobot mini vehicles, Autobot cars, your Autobot commander, your Autobot air guardian. Then on the Decepticons subcategories, you got your Constructicons, Decepticon Military Operations Commander, which is Shockwave. Got your Deluxe Insecticons, your Triple Changers, your Decepticon Planes, your Decepticon Communications Team, which is like Soundwave and the Tapes, and your Standard Insecticons, and yeah, your Decepticon Leader Megatron. Collect them all. Put out this checklist. There's even, you can even see the actual little thing where you're supposed to cut this out, because
Yeah,
you know they want little Jimmy to keep this by his side at all times and constantly pester his parents to buy him more stuff off this list.
I certainly never completed the G1 versions because they got way too pricey by the time I could have afford to buy stuff. But from the Titans Return era into Combiner Wars all the way up to Siege and the stuff they did, when it got to these later catalogs, eventually I got some sort of version of, just about everybody on there.
You got there eventually.
Yep. Okay, so we're gonna we've pretty much reached the end of the show, but to finish off, we're gonna pick from the first early Transformers, which 2 would we pick? If we go into the store, or never mind what year it is, but it's like the very early ones. You're in the store, and your parents are like, you can buy any 2, even if they're expensive, no matter the price. So I picked for my 2 Autobot Warrior Sideswipe, which I never had as a kid, but I did pick up a second-hand one a few years ago. That's actually, technically it's a junker, where a hobbyist guy, he buys up piles of junkers, and from 5 Sideswipes, he builds one complete one, and then he sold it for a reasonable price to groups. So it's still battered and faded and sticker wear and all that, but it robots complete, and he transforms and he works. So I was happy to get it. So He's always very stylish looking in the old shiny red, nice box art. Wish I could have it for $7.99 from Kitty Land, wherever the heck that is, or maybe KB Toys or any of those. So he's like my guy I would have liked to have had. I didn't have as a kid, and there's a bit of a close up there, picked up from one of the collector sites, just showing off his accessories. Got one of the firing missiles, as a lot of the dudes did. Got the transparent window. It's got those like cool doors, like Miami. Makes me think I like bloody Magnum Prime or Miami Vice or any of those zooming around shows with sporty cars. And the other one I picked is Optimus Prime, which again I did not have as a kid, but as a teenager, when I was getting to about 13 or so, I had a junker one from a friend. So I had the robot. It was missing half his tires. It might have had a hand in there. No trailer, but I got to mess about with the robot. And even when I was like so many years later and the show's kind of finished up and they're on to G2's finished by this point, and now we're on to Beast Wars and all that, I was so excited just to have any version of Optimus Prime. I'd never had any of them. And just getting to play with it and muck around, even the junker version where he's kind of a bit loosey in the joints and that, I still was amazed by it. I was like, man, this is an awesome toy. And a few years later, I had another junker Optimus Prime. I still didn't have a trailer. He was slightly better than the other one. He had a bit more wheels. I think he had both his hands. And I was like, oh, man, this is great. And not until years later, I think I played with someone else's one. I got to see the trailer for the first time. And I was like, wow, the trailer's really cool. It's massive, got all these parts and bits in there. Didn't own one back then. I picked up the bootleg one, just arrived a week ago in the mail from China, and it came with a foam box, cardboard, all the parts, sticker sheets, everything. So it's the first ever one I've had with all the parts. But I've had several, 3 or 4 different junker ones over the years. I've had a junker Ultra Magnus and seen parts of the trailers and that, but I've never seen all the parts complete until a week ago, despite, I've seen them in articles and videos. But so that's my 2, and I'll pass over to Mark for your picks.
Yeah, well, I'm also a Prime guy, and
you can't have my one. We can share on weekends. I'll drive it Saturday, you can drive it Sunday.
Obviously, like, he's a really cool looking robot, and he's the leader of the good guys, which is a big deal. But to be honest, childhood me is really still drawn to the fact that it's just a cool truck toy. Like, it's a cool shiny red truck with a trailer that opens out and comes with these little accessories. I think, like, having Roller there, I know he's technically like another character, but it feels like you're getting an extra little vehicle there to play around with as well, which is pretty cool. And yeah, and like, I have a few different versions of Prime now as I've reached adulthood, but I will still always return to my my G1 version. I think I've described it before. It's almost like a stress ball or a stress relief item in my toy collection, because I know the transformation so well. You don't have to look at it to transform it. It's almost like something. It's something I kind of reach towards because it's like familiar to me, and I feel comfortable just kind of having it nearby. There's like an odd, intangible kind of feeling of good I get
it's still my favorite
just
version.
being around.
I never had him as a kid, but I mean, I've got probably more than 30 different modern Optimus Prime bloody toys if I count them all up, but none of them are quite the same as the original one.
Yeah, he's a real classic. I absolutely love Prime. I really do. And just because as a kid, like many young boys, I would have had plenty of just, die cast cars and stuff like that would have actually scaled perfectly with him. So,
and you can fit a car in his trailer, like, too. That's cool.
You can. And
whether you had
it's just
sideswipe or whether you had other brands of stuff, you can jam a car in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if you did have a few die-cast or any type of cars sitting about, which most young boys did, he was great for that type of playability as well. So he's my number 1 pick.
Yep. Who's your other pick?
My other pick is the man himself, Megatron. So yeah, Prime's opposite number. Now, I know they don't really scale well together, the two toys, but once again, as just looking at this as a toy, yeah, the robot mode leaves a lot to be desired. But as a kid, I loved playing with toy guns, and I loved playing with realistic toy guns. So this Megatron toy would have really ticked that box for me. Especially the fact that he's all like chrome and shiny, and yeah, like look at that, like that. I would have felt like a proper secret agent opening up a
Yeah,
box with that as a youngster. Because I was well on, like I said, it was probably only 7 or 8 years ago at most that I finally picked up a G1 Megatron. So I always wanted one as a kid. I just wanted to be running around pointing them at stuff and acting like a menace in general. Um, so yeah, it's weird. Like even though they are both toys, they are obviously Transformers. That's what we're talking about. But I think childhood me, in both cases, I probably would have mostly kept Prime in his truck mode, and I probably would have mostly kept Megatron in his gun mode.
yeah.
But yeah, those are my top two. And look, if I was to do a number three, I probably would have gone with your choice of Sideswipe because he is such a
I
cool
don't know what that
looking
little
character.
part does. That silver thing, it like plugs into him or something.
Yeah, like on my actual toy, it just like
Mm,
it kind of clips on to the side of his arm.
right.
That's all. And I think in the instructions it calls it like a, I don't know, a neuralizer beam or something. It's supposed to be some type of
Right.
laser weapon,
Yeah, I
whatever it
have looked up
is.
years ago, like the differences in the Japanese one and the American ones, and like there's certain parts you don't get, like you don't get these pellets, obviously, in the American
Yeah.
rigs.
The sword I think is exclusive to Japan as well.
Yeah, like some later versions, they would do reissues or Generation Two. Occasionally, they would bring back the sword and that for certain versions.
Yeah, I would have been a happy chappy back in the day that been brought to the toy shop and been like, yeah, want Prime, want Megatron. If I'd gotten them both, it would have been a major moment. But thankfully, it didn't happen like that. I wasn't spoiled. I came along the hard way, and that's why I have an appreciation for things as an adult, as opposed to just being a
Yeah, my
unappreciative git who got everything he wanted as a kid.
the thing I wanted as a kid but never got and never had a chance of getting, it was never going to happen in a million years. I loved Metroplex. I didn't know how big he was. I just saw him in the catalog. Thought, "Oh, this guy looks cool," and I liked him on the cartoon. And one time ever, I saw him in a big toy store across town that was like way far away from where we lived. We were not normally over that way. We just stopped in to look at stuff, not to buy anything, to look. This was like going to the equivalent of a Toys R Us in New Zealand. We had Toy Warehouse. And I saw a Metroplex in the box, and I remember just being like, my mouth was like on the floor. Just I was looking at the box and the art, was just like, whoa, that's massive. Wonder how big the actual toy is and all that. And never saw it again or since. Picked up one about 12 years ago, just a second-hand one. He's certainly not complete, but he has his hands and his head, and he has the robot parts. He doesn't have all his accessories, but I love that toy. That's an amazing design.
Fantastic toy, and I can only imagine your mind being blown looking at that box in the shop.
It was. I still remember it vividly to this day. Just like it was only like a minute, maybe I'm looking at it, and just like the artwork, just seeing it in the store was like a special moment. Like forget actually owning or bringing it home, because I don't know how much it was back then, but this would be the most expensive Transformer at the time, and most of them were already, other than your little beachcombers and little dudes, like a double cross sized dude, he's already at a higher price point. Your Primes and Megatron, they're already quite pricey toys compared to other 80s stuff. But they do have more parts and die casts and everything. But so Metroplex would have been very expensive, and most Transformers were well out of our price range for birthdays and stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah, they weren't cheap. Definitely not.
But yeah, that brings us to the end of today's show. A little sneak peek of what's around the corner.
Getting close to Christmas, folk.
Yeah, it's going to be a die-hard holiday.
Yeah, we're gonna die harder this year.
Die hard.
I always forget it. That little subtitle is actually, it is Die Hard 2, Die Harder, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna
might
be
have to
fun.
get I might have to get warmed up during the week. Maybe I'll watch Passenger 57 with old Wesley Snipes, and it'll get me prepared
Yeah,
for Die Hard too.
get you into form for some
Yeah,
airport action.
some
But
planes,
yeah,
trains.
lots of good stuff on the horizon. And we've got, of course, Toxic Crusaders and the Wrestling
Yeah,
Classic
another
coming along
toy
later on as
special.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, always fun looking through these old toy images and reminiscing about what we had and what we'd still like to get.
Yeah, I love checking them out. I wish I had that bloody catalog as a kid, because I used to. It was the bigger fold-out Ladies one that had like Skylinks and bloody Predacons and all that in it. And I had it for so many years, and at some point I lost it, and I don't know why. Because I've got my Turtles toys when I was a kid. I got those 3 Transformers on the desk next to me here. Of all the weird things that I've got, and then the things I've lost, I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, hopefully someday you'll be reunited with them. If not, though, you'll always have the digital scans at least.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got a bunch of them saved on there. But yeah, well, we're gonna see you guys next time.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. See you later.